And welcome back to Late Night Lately, the late night show. I'm your host, Chad White. If you didn't know, this is the late night podcast for the website cpluscomedy.com. Like I just said, it's a website. Go there. Episode 38 of the show, of the program. Still no monologue, mostly because this episode is late and it is my fault. I mean, it's not really my fault. Somebody asked me to work out with them on Friday afternoon, so I had to fit in a fourth workout. Very true, it was a fourth workout. Fifth, if you count the yoga I did. So yeah, fifth workout. It was an hour of yoga, so I counted it as a workout. It was over half an hour of work, so I said it's a workout. And yeah, so 1, 2, 3, fourth. I'm gonna put the running and the walking in the same category. So fourth workout. Doesn't matter. Last week was the debate, the presidential debate between Kamala Harris and Dangle J. Tramp. And wouldn't you know it, every single late night host covered some part of the conversation about the debate. Let's start off with what happened this week in late night. John Lovett was on. He was on Survivor. He was also on After Midnight to talk about being on Survivor. If I don't know what's going on with Survivor. They've been doing, and you know what? I'm going to go ahead and say it. Big Brother as well. They've been doing some stunt casting. Last year for Big Brother, they had Cirie from Survivor, who I would say is a legendary Survivor player. Even she's played a couple of times, but her son was on Survivor. Her son was on Big Brother, and then she was on Big Brother that same year, and she was a surprise player, and everybody was they're like, whoa, but they didn't know her son was. It was good. I enjoyed that little twist. Anyway, but John Lovett, the podcaster, yes, was on After Midnight to promote his Survivor-ness. And during the sit-down segment of After Midnight, the newly minted sit-down talk show portion, he, first of all, had his legs crossed up on the couch with the shoes on, and he talked about being on Survivor. And I think this is one of the few times that cross-promotion works in his favor. I'm not a huge fan of John Lovett. I do think he's a very smart person. And his podcast, his people love it. The Lovett Files. I don't know what it's called. People love it. That's a great podcast. That'd be a great podcast subtitle. People love it. I don't know what's going on with my voice. Last week it was super deep. Now it's not. Let's move on. Jimmy Fallon had a post-debate monologue that played really well. You know what I also noticed is that if you go to the Tonight Show YouTube page, unlike the other, you know what, I would say much like Kimmel's YouTube page, the interviews and the other bits don't have that many views, but the monologues more often than not have 500,000 views, which I think is very funny. I don't know what that means in terms of, and then, depending on whomever he's interviewing, if it's Kevin Hart or Paris Hilton or whatever, then it'll be in the triple digits. But it's so interesting to see the number discrepancies between his monologues. Are people really searching for what Jimmy Fallon has to say about the political landscape? And again, I like Jimmy Fallon. St. Vincent was on? Oh my goodness. I have to watch that clip. She played 2 songs? I think St. Vincent is great. She's a wonderful artist. Lainey Wilson was on. I'd leave my family for Lainey Wilson. I'm going to talk about Seth Meyers in a second. Oh my God. The video froze. What's going on? What is going on? Anyway, I'm going to talk about Seth Meyers in a second. But, man, oh man, he had Casey Musgraves on last week, and I would most assuredly leave my current life for Casey Musgraves. That is not a joke. That's very much a fact. If she was like, come up to Nashville, I would sell everything in this house, get my pets, put them in the car, and head on up to Nashville. Oh my God. Or if she was like, let's split our time between Atlanta and Nashville, that'd be fantastic. I don't have to move or anything. Oh my God. Kimmel was live during after the presidential debate, which was a very big surprise for me. I didn't know that Kimmel was going to be able. He's going to be able to comment on the debate after it happened. But he used to their show used to be live to tape years like years into the program, and then at some point they stopped because it was too much. But Kimmel also had some really great retorts about the debate. The same thing goes for Seth Meyers, who wasn't live after the debate, but the following night they had a closer look, which is the most popular segment, I think, in all of late night history. I've never seen such a consistent set of views on YouTube, and I watch it live on YouTube TV. I record the episode. If NBC still had their programs on Hulu, I would watch it on Hulu. But you can only watch them on Peacock after the fact. And quite frankly, Peacock sucks butt. But the Closer Look Live is something that they've done before. We'll cover that later in this episode. But if you're watching the video, you saw me quickly look down to the right. I thought here's just a long walk to get to what I thought. I now have a standing desk. That has been a new development in my life. So I was able to procure a very expensive standing desk for $90 on Facebook Marketplace. A guy was just wanting to get rid of it. It's in pristine condition. And I replaced my old desk. It's fantastic. And I don't have a mat just yet to stand on, but I do have 4 yoga mats. Very true. I actually have 3 yoga mats and 1 workout mat. That was my first yoga mat. But that workout mat is like roughly, if my biggest yoga mat is a Lululemon like 6 millimeter, like the biggest Lululemon mat, I believe that's like 6 millimeters thick or something like that. This is probably like 15 millimeters thick. It's so thick. But truly, again, it's just a workout mat. So I use it when I stretch. I use it when that's pretty much it. I use it when I stretch. Again, I don't have a mat for the standing desk. So it's Monday morning. I go, you know what? I want to stand. I press the 1. I'm about to record this podcast, so I'm trying to get all this information together. And I get the standing mat, and I get on this mat, and I stand on it for a little bit. I put it down as the desk was going down, and I thought it was the dog because I heard him rustle himself. And now the dog's over here. So in that entire time span of me telling this story, the dog has come over here and stood in the place where I thought that he was, but it was the mat. Anyway, let's get back to this podcast. But this is the second time I believe they've done a Closer Look Live, and it was a primetime special at 10 p.m. It was live, and it was great, and it was very funny. Also, note that they shot 2 episodes. So they shot the Wednesday night episode of Late Night with Seth Meyers on Tuesday. I think that's interesting because Conan used to do the same thing all the time, and Letterman used to shoot the Friday episode on Mondays. Colbert also went live after the debate, and I believe he had John Dickerson on. I want to triple check that. It's just, this is going to sound so mean. Colbert can pull these. Yeah, he had John Dickerson on. Colbert can pull these stunts and do live episodes. And I think they largely work out. The audience is there just to what seems like be a part of history and that's fine. I do think that he plays better. He plays somewhat better live, and they also had a meanwhile segment, which is funny. He plays somewhat better live, but it's there's something so stale about the Late Show. It's the same. It's not the same kind of staleness that I feel with Last Week Tonight. I guess I'm airing my grievances. It's not the same kind of staleness I feel with Last Week Tonight. Last Week Tonight, just they run through the same jokes over and over again. With the Late Show, I feel like the jokes aren't funny, and in most cases, especially for this post debate live episode, it feels like we're just trying. We're speaking of the moment. We're doing jokes of the moment, and that's how it works for them. But it's not as it's so prescient when it comes to the joke delivery and everything that happened, because you're commenting on something that happened an hour beforehand. And then you already have, the skeleton of the monologue set up. You've got jokes that were already probably written that day. And then you can fill in the gaps with other jokes. But it is, I think the payoff for that episode is not the monologue, which is what I can only assume the producers and the network believe the winning piece to be. It's the monologue. It's not the whole show. I'm saying it's the monologue. They think, oh, it's the monologue. People tune in, they go to sleep as they're watching a monologue. Great. But I think the interview portion is the one that's is the stuff that helps, because when Colbert was live, 2 or 3 weeks ago, during the DNC and during the RNC, it was you have to comment on the things that happened that day, as opposed to something that just happened recently or 40 minutes ago, and you're commenting on it with this monologue. Interviews, you can ask Hillary Clinton anything that happened at the DNC. You can talk about, this person appeared at the DNC and we talked about this, or they talked about this and that, and it was an amazing night and blah blah blah. And for John Dickerson to have him for the entire episode to talk about what Trump and what happened at the debate, and our debate's better without an audience, things like that. That's what really works. The monologues, I think, are second tier because they're just not that funny. But these interview portions that Colbert can do are. For Jon Stewart, I would say, because they have a super producer like Jen Flans, because I know for a fact that they have younger writers than Colbert, and a smaller audience, quite frankly, and a smaller in-studio audience, and because they have correspondence, Jon Stewart's monologue after the debate, which was roughly 19 or so minutes, really packed a punch. And he also appeared on the debate. Anyway, that's it. That's it for this week of Late Night. Now let's go back to a closer look live. Let's talk more about the live stuff. This comes from Deadline, written by Peter White about a month ago, talking about how A Closer Look went live again. And Myers told Deadline, is very funny because I think the original plan was to do 3 of those, and then somehow it became 1. 3 of the A Closer Look lives. It was really exciting to do because A Closer Look live is so much talking, and I'm very proud of the fact there wasn't a stumble or a flub there. I feel like the old SNL butterflies came back in a good way to get through that on a live Closer Look. I will say, when it was over, the network didn't call and ask us to do another one. Now, A Closer Look already airs 3 times a week in its segment form, between 8 and 12 minutes on late night What's it called? Yeah, it's Late Night. Late Night with Seth Meyers. Sal Gentile is the head writer and for A Closer Look. And he's helped by Alex Blaze and Seth Meyers. Alex Blaze is the head late night writer. For a segment like A Closer Look to go live, it's not the traditional late night episode. Obviously, it's A Closer Look, that segment, that 8 to 12 minute segment, blown up to a 40-minute show that fits inside an hour that's going to have built-in commercial breaks. And it doesn't come natural to interrupt that segment and have it go to commercial and then come back and be like, okay, we were talking about this. Like, imagine if Conan did who's the animal expert he used to have on in the late 90s, early 2000s? Jared, I believe. Okay, now I gotta look this up. Conan animal expert. I spelled expert wrong. Jared Miller. I spelled Jared wrong too. Jared Miller. And now imagine if and those were always so hectic, but they're very popular online. If you just go back and watch, people are like, look at this is funny. Now imagine that blown up to 40 some odd minutes and going to commercial break. And it's truly just one thing. A Closer Look, and for all intents and purposes, is the same thing that Last Week Tonight is. It's the same thing that what the Daily Show originated, which became Full Frontal with Samantha Bee and Last Week Tonight. It's the single story, but now it's blown up to larger proportions, and it works, and it's funny, and in particular, if you watch this last one, Seth goes on a tear at the end, just naming all the wrong things that Trump has done in the past 8 years or so. And for Jon Stewart and Stephen Colbert, again, what I was talking about earlier is them commenting, and Jimmy Kimmel, I guess, and them commenting on what just happened. It works in some cases for about 2 out of 3 of them, and then for Colbert, it kind of doesn't. But the interview does play a part in it. The interview later on in the episode does play a part in it. These live shows take so much work and effort because you are still preparing for a show. You still have to write the same jokes. If a monologue writer is tasked with writing 100 jokes in a day, they still have to write 100 jokes. However, there also is an element of watching the thing you're about to comment on and coming up with jokes in the moment. And sometimes they land, sometimes they don't. But it is so fascinating to see these hosts work and largely do it well. There's obviously they wouldn't go live if they knew they were going to be bad or not, or not good, not up to par. Because even if you didn't know if you didn't know if it wasn't live, then you just say, "Oh, it's another episode of Colbert, it's another episode of Stewart." But I like it all. I liked it all, and it was there's. I don't want to rank them, but I do think the Closer Look to ruminate on it was, and to build a whole episode around it. And to talk about the responses, that just afforded them so much more than what Colbert and Stewart's teams could do. But it's kind of like it's kind of like fighting 2 different battles. We're both going to be talking about the same thing, and we're all going to be doing it live. But in Seth's case, we have a whole 24 hours to come up with it, while you only have 40 minutes. I think it all comes from who is a better, what works for the audience more would be who is a better orator, who can, for, I'll say it like this. Jon Stewart makes it seem like we're having a conversation. Like we just watched this and he's delivering his monologue and he's commenting on it and we're having a conversation, as opposed to Colbert, who is setting up clips and then quipping on them, which is two different styles, and they're two different shows. You know, in many cases, The Daily Show is the same late night show as every other late night show, but it is able to branch out and do something completely different basically every single night. Whereas Seth and Steven and Jimmy, they have these set paths to follow. And where After Midnight and The Daily Show don't. I liked it all. I liked all the live stuff. I still don't think Colbert. I still think he needs a better sidekick. He needs to communicate better with his sidekick. Rather, not he doesn't need a better sidekick. His entire tenure as a late night host, as a traditional late night host, I'm not talking about the Colbert Report, is just so, like, that is the worst part, is that he just doesn't know how to comment with his sidekicks. Ugh. All right, I'm done. If you liked what you like here, head to the website, cpluscomedy.com, where you can see me talk to famous people sometimes. If you want to see a video version of this show, go to youtube.com/cpluscomedy, where you can see me in all my glory. If you want to see a video version of other shows, The Constitutionals, as well as LinkedIn Logs, then you can go to youtube.com/cpluscomedy. Subscribe to those shows wherever you get your podcasts. Follow us on TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook @cpluscomedy. Me @ChadBlackWhite. Thank you so much. Bye.